What's up, photography world? Joshua Grasso here from theshutterschool.com. And for today's video, we have another session lesson, but it's a special treat. This is my first behind-the-scenes video at a real wedding. So I'm very excited. I had my assistant try to get some behind-the-scenes shots for me, a few behind-the-scenes clips, so that I can kind of show you a little bit of before and after and try to give you a little bit of input on how I approach shooting a wedding. Also, hopefully having a few good before and after shots can kind of give you a couple little recipes and setups for making some cool portraits yourself. Most of the tips are portrait tips. I do have a few candid photojournalism tips as well. Kind of go over a few of the different parts of the wedding day, from portraits to first look to dance floor and everything in between. I'm really excited about this. I can't wait to make more of these. So we're going to start out with bridal prep, getting some candidates of the bride and getting some portraits of the bride, then a bridesmaids. Then we'll spend some time with the groomsmen, do the same thing, cover the first look, cover the formals, cover the portraits, some of the natural light portraits, fancy light portraits, cover the ceremony, and give a few tips on the reception as well. So let's get into it. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully you'll learn a few things from how I shoot a wedding. Cool, so here's the before shot. So one cool action shot is getting the bride manipulating the dress, hanging up the dress, something like that. But obviously this scene, from being pulled back, it's not very clean. So what I did is got in really close to the wall and tried to use this architectural decorative piece as kind of the interest of the frame. And then you end up with this action shot of the bride, got a good smile out of her interacting with the dress, got yourself a good shot by getting in close and using the art as a background instead of just like the messy. So here's the setup for the next shot. We've got that art piece on the wall again. We have this interesting lights on the foreground and the ceiling. And you'll notice if I shoot through those lights, they look kind of interesting. But if I darken it, then they're going to pop out and look a lot more interesting. But then obviously the subject's going to be dark. So then you throw a flash from the right onto the subject. I've got a grid on there so it only hits the bride. It doesn't light up the whole scene. And that way I can darken out the lamp, get a good expression from the bride, get her lit up, and then she looks pretty cool with this foreground light element. So here's another bridal portrait using the exact same technique, except for instead of using the light as a foreground, we're using the light as a cool background accent element. We have this really cool light on the wall, and so you have to underexpose to make sure that light looks really good. And then I throw that gridded flash again on the bride's face so that she looks good as well instead of her being dark. So brighten up the bride, darken up the background, get yourself a nice portrait. So when it comes down to bridal portrait time, bridesmaid portrait time, I try to find a nice clean space with some nice bright natural light that's usually good for the bride, and then I get a nice set of natural light bridal portraits. And then I try to get the bridesmaids together. So I try to get a nice standard bridesmaid shot where they're looking at the camera, and then I try to get them hugging, laughing, doing something like that so that you get a nice clean natural light space to do these portraits. Or shot of a quick example of a candid. So anytime I see interactions or cute moments, people taking pictures, stuff like this, the proud mom is taking a cell phone picture of her bride, but it's a snapshot in a messy scene. I got down really low and kind of shot through the bride's arm to try to make an interesting frame. Sometimes you do stuff like this, it's a little too abstract to tell what's going on, but hopefully you can tell it's like shooting through the bride, the mom looking at her, get a cool candid. Another quick candid behind the scenes. Anytime I have action, especially if the action has the opportunity for expressions, you want to get in there and be ready for the expression. So I got down low to clean up the background. I didn't set it up. She was just going to pop champagne, and usually you get an expression when they get surprised by how loud it is. And we did. We got a nice expression out of the bride. All right, another candid before shot. You have the bride's sister putting on the bride's shoes. Stuff like this, whenever there's action going on or details involved with those actions, you want to isolate those things and really get in there. So instead of shooting it wide and showing the whole scene, just getting into what's important. You've got the bride's sister's hands, the shoes, the feet. And that's pretty much all you need. And then also I pulled back and saw a cool abstract shape of the dress framing the shoes sticking out. Nice, simple details are all you need. So for the groom portrait here, we have this nice, big, beautiful window with the industrial brick background behind him. So I wanted to take advantage of that. What I like to do is have the groom point away from the window a little bit so that when they turn around and look back into the light, it adds a little bit of dimension. I always try to find a way to get them looking into the light to get some nice dimension to the face. And then after I get them looking into the light and getting my nice portrait, then I'll try to get them laughing, being casual, and getting some more candid photos. Another more creative way to use this hard light is to get them actually looking directly into the light. Maybe give them a purpose to be there, like fixing their tie or something along those lines. And then you can get them in really cool dramatic light. And for groomsman portraits, I always try to find one that's more casual and relaxed. The guy's kind of hanging out. And so for this portrait, As you can see, there's a cool bar as a background, but the lighting is a little bit tricky. There was this really strong light coming in from the windows, and luckily there was this tiny sliver of shade. So I put them in that tiny sliver of shade so that they're kind of open shade. And then what I had to make sure to do is pose each person to have a slightly different pose, and so that they all had some more casual style to it. Some people are sitting, some people are leaning on the bar. And then after I got the solid standard pose, then I got them to kind of interact and maybe cracking jokes at the groom, so then you get a more candid portrait of the guys. I tried to get a nice dramatic groom's portrait as well. And so I saw this dark hallway with this really cool texture background, which would work perfectly to do a cool dramatically lit portrait. So I put the groom in there. I have a mag mod with the grid on my Godox flash off to the left. My assistant is just holding it, pointing it at the groom's face. Then I try to get a good expression out of him, and boom, you got the shot. Also, you'll see a slight foreground element just to try to mix it up and make something a little different. And so I just kind of moved to the right and got the statue in the foreground. All right, so I'm shooting this wedding by myself, so I got to cover the first look by myself, and I got to get all the angles. So you definitely got to be very active. You don't have a second photographer to try to make sure you cover all the angles. So the first shot, I always try to get the bride walking up slowly, get over the groom's shoulder, get the nice approaching pre-story of her happy. Then I try to swing around real quick and get a wide shot of the whole scene. And then before the bride touches the groom's shoulder, I will make sure I'm locked in on his face, looking at the bride. And when it comes to bridal party photos and family photos, I just try to find a nice natural light space with a clean background. Here we've got a courtyard up against the wall here. It's kind of a little bit of color for the background. And we got some good soft even light. So this does a good job for group portraits because everybody's lit nice and evenly. And then I like to use that nice, simple, natural light space with a simple, easy background to kind of work through all the portraits and try to get some simple, basic, clean, easy portraits. Nothing too creative. Just kind of get the couple warmed up, get them laughing together so that they're ready for the rest of the portrait session. So as we move around and try to find more creative portraits, they're comfortable and ready to go. Another simple natural light shot I like to do to get them warmed up is just get them in some clean light and an interesting walkway type of space and get them walking together, laughing. I try to get them interacting as much as I can. As long as they're not looking at the camera, you're going to get a decent shot. So if they're feeling stiff, just keep talking to them or get them talking to each other. Try to get them joking around and get a nice expression of them walking together. After all the simple natural light, easy, relaxed portraits are done, then I try to find some more creative compositions. I try to find some cool scenery, some cool textured backgrounds. So here, as you can see, there's this really cool metal wall that makes a nice background. So when you zoom in and fill the frame with just that texture, you get an interesting background for you. I brushed in some blue white balance shift to kind of give it an extra dimension there. Also, one thing that's kind of cool, if you can find the same texture as a foreground and background, then you can kind of get in close. So here I got in close and use this metal wall as a foreground element and a background element. Just kind of another way to get a different look out of the same place. And then the last stage of portraits, if I have enough time, is I try to get really creative and get some cool lighting effects. So here they have some really beautiful art all over the venue. And so I have my softbox out, my mag box with two 80-200s in it, turned all the way down. You don't need a lot of power inside. And got the couple nice and close, framed by the arch shape of the artwork. Throw some light on the couple with a nice and ugly pose, and then they pop against this bright, vibrant background. Pretty cool. And here's a good go-to technique I have for trying to get interesting portraits is that anytime you have cool lights or candles or anything like that, try to use them as a foreground element and then put your subject in the background. This shot didn't turn out like as great as I would have liked. I think just kind of the way the candles were staggered, it was hard to get a really good symmetry with it. But anyway, here's the setup. I'm shooting through the long row of candles, and I've got the mag box on the bride again. Have her posed away from the light and then turning back into it to get some nice shape. And then, of course, by using the lighting, I'm allowed to expose a little bit darker so that the candles can really pop, and then the light brings them back up. So for this shot, there was a really cool gobo light on the wall that the venue already had up there, so I wanted to take advantage of it. And what's tricky about shots like this is you're going to have to place the couple or the subject wherever that the light is hitting and the shadows aren't. But because it's such a complex pattern, there was definitely still going to be some shadows on the groom's face. So I have a mag light off to the left as well with the grid so that I can fill in those shadows, sure that there's no weird patterns. And then you get them interacting, try to get a bunch of different poses. Some casual, some simple. One cool trick you can do with the bride to get cool bride poses is to tell her to bend down and pick her dress and like throw it out. And then it looks like a nice action pose. All right, when it comes down to the ceremony, my main goal is to capture different expressions. So this first shot, I'm trying to get over the bride's shoulder, the groom looking at her come down the aisle. Then I always try to get some basic scenic shots. And then I'm trying to get the interacting shots of people looking at each other, the bride looking at the groom with the an expression or the groom looking at the bride with an expression. I look for the guest to have an expression. I'm trying to capture moments during the ceremony. So after the ceremony, we went back to the bride's favorite spot. She wanted to really get some nice shots in front of this king plow sign here. So we came back out when it was sunset, and you got the sunset hitting them over the shoulder, lighting up their hair, giving them this nice soft glow, much more flattering than it was in the middle of the day during portrait time. So sometimes if you have a go-to spot, you might have to wait till the light is really good. Sunset is always going to be a great time for pictures. You get that nice warm glow and get the couple interacting, get some nice portraits. All right, and then on our way back inside, I noticed the sunset was bouncing off the building, and it thought it would make a really cool glowing backdrop. So I got them really close and snuggly. I got the sunset bouncing off the building, kind of rim lighting them a little bit, but that nice glow behind them made for a cool shot. So I have a couple different lighting setups for receptions. Sometimes I like to use this cross light, so I have one flash in each corner essentially shooting at each other, so that no matter what angle I get a little bit of a backlight, a little bit of a rim light. But when I do this, I try to have an on-camera flash in case there's weird shadows on one of the cameras, so that I can get a little bit of a fill, and then my other camera I'll just leave just the flash if I want it a little bit more dramatic. And I'm just looking for a good moment and a good background, mix it up, try to get some close details here. I have the bride's hands over the shoulder, and then with this really cool gobo light in the background, I wanted to try to use it to make a silhouette. So having the on-camera trigger really quick, turn my off-camera flashes off, and then just had the mother and groom dancing in front of that light and made a cool silhouette. All right, so there's me at a wedding. Thanks so much for joining me. Again, I'm Joshua Grasso from the Shutter School. Please like, follow, subscribe, do all that good stuff to help the algorithm find my videos so that I'll keep making more. Can't wait to make more of these. Hopefully I'll have my assistant follow me along at every wedding and I can make this a full series. But in the meantime, check out all the other tutorial videos on my channel. Again, thank you a ton, and we'll see you in the next video.